Hello, my name is Brent. I'm one of the service techs here at Full Circle Water, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over how to put a seal kit in the 3U Ibarra pump line. You may have a different colored motor. It could be a black rolled steel motor. You could have a gold ball door motor, or you could have one of these blue severe duty WEG motors. More than likely, you're going to be seeing what you're going to have is one of these blue motors. So I did want to just go over that in case it brings confusion right in the front end. It is, all three of those are the same motor. They're just different manufacturers, different configurations. They all bolt up to this black transition housing the same. This video will cover the 5 horse, the 7.5, the 10, and the 15 horsepower 3U Ibarra line. The seal kits do need to be replaced yearly at a bare minimum. That's going to differ between shops, how many shifts you run, what kind of stone you're cutting, that type of stuff. But a general rule of thumb is to replace that seal kit every year, whether it's leaking or not. What I want to do first is go over some of the tools you're going to need. You're going to want to have some type of a rubber mallet, small rubber mallet. It doesn't have to be rubber. It can be wood. It can be cork, whatever. You're going to want to have a basic hammer, 3/8 drive extension with a 17 millimeter socket. This is going to be an 8 millimeter hex head socket. You're going to want to have a 1/2 inch extension. Doesn't have to be 6 inch. You can be 12 or whatever you have in the shop. You're going to want to have some type of a chisel. Please make sure that this chisel is sharp. You will be using it. Another 8 millimeter hex head wrench. Some of you may need a 3/4 inch socket to take the transition housing off. We won't be using that today, but on the bigger 7.5, 10s, and 15s you will. You're going to want to have a 30 millimeter socket, 1/2 inch drive with a 1/4 inch impact on the back, 3/8 ratchet, a 17 millimeter wrench works real well, and then 2 pry bars. Also helps to have some type of a power tool. It doesn't have to be electric. You can use air, but 3/8 inch for the hammer on that one. And then you're going to have your corresponding 1/4 inch impact for that. With your seal kit, which you would get from us, you're going to have, once you bust it open, you're going to have a little packet of lube. You should have an O-ring, and then the seal kit itself. Do not be alarmed if this is not the seal kit you got in your order. We use different seal kits for different industries, whether you're cutting in concrete, whether you're cutting in stone, if it's a block shop. The seal kit you got should correspond with what you're doing in your shop. You're also going to want to have 2 gaskets to finish it up, a 2-inch one for the incoming and a 1 1/4 for the output. These sizes are also going to correspond to your 7.5 and your 10. Once you get to the 15 horsepower, you're going to have a 2.5 inch or 3 inch input, and you're going to have a 1.5 inch output. It helps to have a light too, in case you're in a dark area. Don't worry about this. This is for me. You're going to want to have some Loctite 248. This is the blue Loctite. You can use the red stuff. The red stuff is just a little more heavy duty. You're also going to want to have some anti-seize. This is the Loctite 8060. Does not have to be this brand. You can use pretty much any type of anti-seize that's on the market. Now, this particular 3U pump I have disassembled a couple times already and then gently put it back together just for the sake of the video. Your 3U pump is not going to come off the end of this motor that easy. You're going to have to wrestle with it a little bit. I would recommend not doing this on the shop floor. Get yourself a bench, preferably someplace where you can get some quiet and some sanity, and get this pump and motor out of the shop, off the floor. The seal kit in particular, it needs to be assembled clean. You can't have dirt, debris, whatever you ate for lunch, taco seasoning on your hands, get smearing it all over everything. Also with these pump and motors, it's not rocket science to do the seal kit, so don't be too overwhelmed by it. But it does require some mechanical ability. And so I recommend getting off. Haste does make waste. Anyways, there's 10 bolts that are going to surround this top. They are stainless steel bolts. And so we'll just start kind of taking this thing apart. These ones are going to be very loose because, like I said, I've already taken this one apart a few times, but you're going to use your wrench to take them apart. If you can't get them apart, this is where your impact is going to come in. You can come in and just impact them off. I prefer using the impact just because it saves time, but it's important to remember that this bolt goes on first, your washer goes on next, and your nut is on the back. We'll cover this when we go through assembly, but you can even kind of see on here there's already some anti-seize. Any of this stainless stuff, you want to make sure you're having your anti-seize on when you reassemble it. If you don't use the anti-seize, you'll either A, never get it apart again, or you'll do something what's called galling, where the stainless will bind on top of itself and you'll end up having to torch it out just to get it off. So once you get these 10 bolts off, what I always recommend people do, especially if you've never done something like this before, an old trick of the trade is to assemble things in the line that you've taken them off. So let's say you've taken your bolts off. Go ahead and put those as your number one spot on your bench. And then the next thing you're going to have is you're going to take this case off. Take the case and set it right after your bolts. And then as you take every corresponding part off of here, do the same thing. Just set it in a line. The reason we do that is by the time you get into this thing and Chuck comes over and pulls you off and has you go do something else, you are going to forget what you took off and when you took off. It's one of the top 5 calls we get when customers call back in and they say, I put my pump together and I'm positive I did it correctly. And I'll say, well, great, take it apart again, take some pictures for me. 9 times out of 10, they take it apart, they send me the pictures, and the impeller's put on backwards. You'll have the washers and the O-rings that are inside here stacked on top of each other wrong. You're going to do yourself a favor by just stacking all your parts in a line. When you go to reassemble then, all you got to do is grab each part in that line and put it back on. You don't have to remember how you took it apart, right? So at this point in time, you're going to have the case off. As far as inspecting this case, you want to look inside this ring here. This is where the impeller kind of feeds in. It should look like this. It should look fairly clean. You should see a nice shiny stainless. If you start seeing purple and browns and you start seeing any type of scoring in there, that means that you're creating a lot of friction and then somehow that this is getting worn out. If you wear the inside of this case out, the only way to do that is replacing the case. It's pretty rare for that to happen. I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but it's something I did want to bring up. Once you get to here, this jam nut is either A, going to come off really easy, or it's not going to come off at all. And that's what we have these impacts for. A lot of guys will call and they'll say, oh my gosh, I can't get that nut off. What do you guys do to get that nut off? This is what we do. We take a little 30 millimeter, put it in there, hold the impeller. Make sure you do have some type of a glove on when you're doing this. This stainless can be razor sharp. I'm using these black gloves today. You'd want to use something more of like a cut resistant glove or a leather glove if you can. But just give it a bump, hold the impeller, and that nut's going to come off. Like we talked about, you're going to have a washer and you're going to have your jam nut. Go ahead and stick that right after you just took your last part off so you know what position you took it off in. There's also a keyway in here, and this is what holds this impeller on the shaft. So I try to keep my keyway up so it doesn't drop out and fall on the ground. This one came out really easy. Yours is not going to be. It's going to be welded to the top of that shaft more than likely. Set your keyway right in line. This impeller slides really nicely on here because, again, I've taken this thing apart a couple times to save you time, but your impeller most likely is going to be kind of soldered onto the shaft. Don't be afraid to get your pry bars and get behind there a little bit. You're going to have to want to put them at like 9 and 3, 6 and noon. Don't be prying on this thing crazy. You're just kind of doing a little bit of rocking force. You're just rocking it back and forth to try to get this impeller off. If the impeller does not come off, you can use a little MAP gas kit or something and then try to heat this up just a little bit. Do not go crazy with your heat. If you heat this up too much, it's going to travel down the shaft and you're going to cook the grease right out of that front bearing. It's going to be terrible when you put it back together. A little bit of heat, Bang on it with your hammer a little bit. Do it. If it still doesn't come off, you might have to bring it to a motor shop, have them extract the impeller off with a puller. You might have to try a little harder with these pry bars and really get in there and crank on it. Once you start really prying on it, though, you're going to destroy the impeller, maybe even this back case, and you're going to have to replace them. It's not the end of the world, but just be aware of that. And then you'll want to order an impeller. For the sake of our video here, though, impeller is going to come off. This one looks really clean. Again, set it in line. See, I got case, bolt, key. It's already done for me. Once you get to this point, you're going to see your mechanical seal, and this is the main part, what seals the water from the pump end out of this electric motor end. Again, yours is probably going to have mud packed in here. It's not going to become pressed out. It's going to be more pressed all the way in. Your seal is probably going to look like that. It's going to be pressed way back in there. That's fine. If you got to get in there with your little pry bars, kind of sneak it out a little bit, go ahead and do that. This one should come right off. And again, you've got one of the washers. You've got your compression spring. Your spring may not look like this. Don't be too concerned about it. Like I said, we use different spring thicknesses, different spring pressures, different springs depending on what you're cutting at your facility. You just need to make sure that you have a spring and you have a washer. We'll take that and set that here. That is going to be now, or that's going to expose now the actual mechanical seal. Now this one is going to slide out really easy, and it's going to come out with the shaft sleeve. Your shaft sleeve will not slide off like this one. And you can kind of tell. Well, actually, that one's bound down there a little bit, so I can actually show you what you're going to do. What you're going to do is you're going to get your pry bars on here at 6 and 9 and 3. Or 6 and noon, and you're just going to want to rock this back and forth. Just kind of keep going side to side. You don't want to do big, huge pries. You just want to kind of get in here, kind of go all the way around until you can get this thing to kind of do what you want it to do, which is to come off. See, now I can already tell it's starting to come off pretty good. I don't want it to fall in my lap. So I know that I got it off it good enough. Don't worry about this rubber O-ring. Rubber O-ring can just stay on this back case for now. Once you get to this part, you can kind of try to slide this off. And then we have the mechanical seal, the actual seal itself. We have the back portion, the front portion. And like I said, this one actually came with the shaft sleeve with it. And the shaft sleeve is actually this piece here. Yours will not do it. It's going to be bonded to the actual shaft. See if we can get this off here. I'm not too concerned about this because you can see it's kind of breaking apart a little bit. We're putting a new one in anyways. What we got here. I'm just trying to get this shaft off here. So this is the shaft sleeve. Now this is going to give you the most amount of headache, and that's why we're going to cover it here in this video. But this is a stainless steel shaft, and this is a carbon steel shaft coming out of the motor. They're two dissimilar metals. This, once you put it on here and you put it in that water that you guys are running through it, it actually fuses onto the shaft. So that's more likely what yours is going to look like when you start taking yours apart. It's going to look just like that, and you're going to have to get in here with your impact and take these bolts off. Now on the 5-horse, you have these types of a hex head bolt. My little line thing isn't working as good as it is because we're kind of space construed here, but they're little hex head bolts. This is the transition housing. You can just take it off, set it aside. I'll actually pull this back here, see if we can gain a little more room. Just set it all in a line. So this is what it's going to look like once you get down to your raw motor. It's going to look like this. Now, you cannot take your new seal and put it over this shaft. You can see that it's got some heat scoring on it. It's got a bunch of baked on rubber. This shaft needs to look smooth. I guess the best way to do it would be to show you what, maybe up in here, you see how shiny that is? You want a nice shiny shaft sleeve. So you can take this and take some steel wool to it if you have to. Try to clean it up as best you can. If you can't get this stuff off or there's scoring on it, you know, anything that's not going to make it smooth, you're going to want to call us back up and order a new shaft sleeve and get a brand new one. Behind this shaft sleeve is going to be one of your last washers. These washers are important. They seal water out from traveling down the shaft. But more than likely what's going to happen is this thing is going to be bonded on here. You're going to try to yank on it. You're going to try to pound on it, which I wouldn't recommend because the bearing is right behind it. It's not going to come off. It's going to be welded on there. The only way that I've found to get these off is to take a die grinder. Die grinder's got is you know, you can electric, you can get them battery operated, but they've got a big cutoff wheel on them. What you want to do is you want to get that and you want to score the top of this shaft sleeve. You're only going to be able to get about 1/3 of the way back because the wheel is going to be spinning so much. If you go any closer, you're going to cut into the motor. Do not cut down into the shaft. You're not looking to take this die grinder and just cut down into this thing. Take your die grinder with a cutoff wheel and just score the top third here. You'll be able to see because the keyway is here once you've cut through it. And you're just looking to go, you know, 2 or 3 millimeters below through this thing. Cut through it, get 1/3 of the way up. Once you got that done, you can put the die grinder away, and that's when you're going to want to break out your chisel. You're going to want to have a good hammer on you too. Don't use some wimpy hammer. You know, we're not framing up a house here. You shouldn't have a spike on the back. A good ball peen hammer, good dead blow hammer, something that's going to have some weight behind it. What you want to do at that time is put your chisel in your keyway right on top of your cut line. Preferably have a good set of gloves on, and what you want to do is start banging down and trying to separate that cut line. What it's going to do is it's going to force the chisel in between your cut, and you're only going to get it down about 1/3 of the way, but that's fine. Once you get that chisel down 1/3 of the way, and don't be smashing on the front of this thing either with full hammer blows. This shaft in here is mounted on these bearings. If you push the shaft in, you bang it up to it, you're going to ruin the motor, and a lot of times you're not going to notice it until you start it back up. Shouldn't take much force to force this split here. Once you force this split down this shaft, it's going to break the rust out between the shaft and the stainless steel sleeve itself, and you should be able to get on here with your hand then. You can kind of see here I can spin this one. If it doesn't, just keep going with your chisel. You may want to put some WD-40 on there. Maybe you got to apply a little bit more heat. You just keep trying. It should break it free. I've never had to go more than halfway on these in order to get them to split off and then slide off. If it does turn into where you're starting to having to really cut down in here, you're making a mess, you busted up a couple cutoff wheels already, just stop, bring it to a motor shop in your area, tell them that I need to get this shaft sleeve off. Once you get your shaft sleeve off, you can set that aside. You can set your last washer aside, and now we've got this thing pretty much stripped down. Once it's stripped down, another big top 10 thing I hear is when they call into the support line is, hey, I got my whole motor rebuilt and I did it right according to the video and it was great, but my seal went out a week later. Usually what that means when I run into that is that the person didn't check the front bearing. Usually by the time you guys get to them, the seal is already leaking. We want to try to change that around. We'd like to get you guys to replace these things before the seals leak. Again, that may be once a year, once every 6 months, once every 2 years. You're going to know. If your seals are going out every 8 months, you know that you're going to want to replace them every 6. But anyways, what happens is when that seal goes out, it leaks water right in behind here. There's a little old rubber O-ring here that protects it as much as it can, but usually by the time you folks get to them, the water is just pouring out the bottom and it's ruined this front bearing. Well, what guys do is they go and replace the seal kit and they don't check this front bearing. The way you check this front bearing is get your whole hand on the shaft and rock it back and forth. It should be smooth. You shouldn't feel any roughness in it at all. If you do feel roughness in your front bearing, it's going to save you a lot of heartache just to go have the motor rebuilt, have them press in a new bearing in the front and a new bearing in the back, preferably a high quality sealed bearing. The shaft should spin very nicely. It shouldn't be rough. This one here is a used one we pulled out of a shop a couple months ago. I can kind of hear the bearing just a little bit. It still feels smooth, but I can hear it. I wouldn't even waste my time with this. I'd have this brought in and have new bearings pressed back into it. It just isn't worth having them fail down the road 3 months in. So once you check that bearing, spinning it back and forth, spinning it, maybe you feel that it's got some good grease in it, it feels good, and you're going to go with it. You're going to rebuild this motor. This is where we can start the actual rebuild process. So you're going to take your washer. Now you're going to get new washers in your kit. Go ahead and take that washer and put it on here. It sits on the back. These 3 washers are not interchangeable. They look very different. You'll know which ones to put on and which ones to not put on. As you can see here on this shaft, it's a nice clean shaft. This is what you want. If your shaft doesn't look like this, which it probably won't, you're going to want to pick up some steel wool or some sandpaper or something like that and really get it nice and cleaned up. I will say that if you're going to use sandpaper on these, make sure to kind of take a wet rag or something and wipe it down when you're done. You don't want pulverized grit in here from you sanding. You want to clean that stuff off as much as you can. Take your new shaft sleeve or the one that you've cleaned up really well and go ahead and slide that onto your shaft. And this is what it should look like. It should spin like that really nicely. If it does not, this is where you're going to go get your anti-seize. And you're going to put a little bit of it on here, not too much. I always tell guys, when you put your anti-seize on, go ahead and wipe it off when you're done. All you need is a thin layer on there. You don't need to be putting it on like you're putting maple syrup on your pancakes. Get your shaft sleeve back on there and spin it. You get that anti-seize underneath there and spin it around, and at that time you're going to be just fine. That's good enough. Try to keep your keyway up. Now, the first thing that goes on once you put this together is your transition housing. All this does is marry the motor, which comes from a different manufacturer, with the Ibarra pump head. They're 2 different manufacturers. Ibarra has created this transition housing to marry those 2 components together. What you will notice in this transition housing is there is a hole on the bottom here. This is your weep hole. This is the hole that's going to signify if you are in a shop, if the mechanical seal is leaking or not. When you look underneath these motors in the shop and if you see a drip coming out of here, drip, drip, that's an indication, and that seal is trying to let you know that it is going to fail soon. You need to replace the seal kit as soon as possible. Hope and the dream is it never gets to the point where it leaks, that you're on a maintenance schedule in your shop and you're replacing these seal kits before they leak. The mating surfaces on here are very important. This is our mating surface right here. You can see there's kind of an outside ring, and seeing that you can kind of see the anti-seize on here even right now, but you want to make sure that that's cleaned off if you've taken it off. Same thing with your motor mounting surface here. This is a machined surface. It must be clean. This one you can see here has got anti-seize all over it. I'm not too concerned about that. You know, you could wipe it down. This is not going to cause too much of a problem. But I'd rather see you clean it up than try to do what I do. I've rebuilt over 100 of these things. Like I know by now what I can do and what I can't do. So go ahead and take your transition housing. This hole is going to go down. And go ahead and put your transition housing on and just kind of rock it back and forth like this. It should be lubricated enough, or it should be clean enough to where you can spin it and you can get in here and line your holes up. I can tell that my 4 holes are lined up just by looking inside of there. We're going to take our bolts, get your anti-seize out. Get it on there. Get some anti-seize on these bolts. You do not want to be dry mounting these bolts into these pumps because, as you've probably imagined by now, you're farther along down the line than I am. You've already dealt with quite a bit of rust and corrosion and grievances. If you're the guy that's going to be putting this seal kit in 6 months or a year from now, do yourself a favor and put some anti-seize on there. Thread them in by hand. Put a little anti-seize on. Now on my particular drill, I've got a Milwaukee here. It's a little bit of a higher end brushless Milwaukee. You might not have this. So I usually set mine at the lowest setting. It's 1. We're not trying to go crazy here when we put these things together. They've got lock washers on them. You're just trying to get them, put them in there. Once you get them in there, you can go ahead and use your 3/8 inch ratchet. Wish I had a torque spec for you. I don't. Just do hand tight. Put a little elbow grease into it. Get them on there. You don't have to buck them down like you're trying to bolt the Titanic together. You'll never get them off again. So we've got our transition housing on. As before, we've got the washer in the back. We've got our shaft sleeve on. This is the other surface that we want to clean up now. Take a rag, rinse this down. Get this rag, get it all cleaned up here. This is your other housing that's going to go over the top of this thing now. As you can see in this one, there's all kinds of rust in here. You want to get all this cleaned up. All these mating surfaces we want to clean up. Take some steel wool, get inside here and burnish this down. If you've got sandpaper, maybe all you need is a wet paper towel. You're going to know, but get it cleaned up. You're also going to see what we have in here is the rear half of that mechanical seal, the burned out one. This does need to be removed. The way you remove these is you just flip it upside down. I always use my rubber mallet because we don't need to kill this thing again. I put my pry bar right on here. You're not saving this part, and just pound it out. And you flip it around, you're going to see, well, this one came out there, but there's the back half of the mechanical seal. We're not going to be using that. Set that aside as a part that's going to go in the garbage, and you want to continue to inspect this rear case. If you did not replace this seal kit in time, what would have happened is this rear part of the seal would have ground out of here. This rubber is going to be all melted off. You're not even going to see it inside the pump, and this whole area is going to be kind of hogged out. That means you need to replace this part. The seal didn't get replaced in time. In this particular case, this seal kit was replaced in time, and it's fine. You just want to take your rag, go ahead inside here, and just clean that up, right? You can also take your O-ring off at this time. Go ahead and set that aside. Now that you have this cleaned up, you can proceed with putting your seal kit back in. Now, I'm not going to use the live seal kit over there because once you tear the live seal kit out and put it in, they're very expensive. They're like $300 to $500 a piece, depending on which one you have. I'm not going to ruin a $300 seal kit for this video, so let's just pretend that this is the new one. When you put these seal kits together, you're going to have this rear half. You're also going to have this little packet of lube that would have came with the thing. And a lot of people are like, hey Brent, thanks for sending me the 1 ounce pillow packet. You could have sent me a little more. This is very special lube. Do not go in your mechanic shop or your cupboards at your shop and pull out grease, silicone grease, WD-40, any of that stuff. You can only use the U.S. Seal grease in here. This is a special lubricant that evaporates once you put it on. It only goes on, stays for a little bit, and evaporates off. The reason for that is these seal faces between each side, they're very, very flat. They're very, very true. We don't want you touching it with your fingers like you're seeing me do now. You want to take this out of that package. You want to be very careful with this. Do not touch the seal face. Don't drop it in the mud. Don't do anything like that. Keep it nice and clean. Set it on your workbench. Take out your lube. You only have about 1 minute to 2 minutes with this lubrication on here to lubricate the seal and install it back in the rear housing. If you wait longer than that, this stuff's going to start to evaporate off. The seal is going to bind up in that housing. You're not going to be able to mount it all the way. So I'll do a little demo with this one. But I want to show you what this looks like. You can just twist the top off. It is a little, it's very milky. Go ahead and put it on. Just now remember, you only want to use a little here. You only got this 1 ounce pillow pack. Spin it around. Do not touch the seal face. Again, do not touch it. You're just lubricating this back half here. Go ahead and drop it down in the rear of the seal. You're going to have a little piece of cardboard, a little round piece of cardboard that's going to come with this. You want to place that cardboard right on the top and push it down. Once you get it pushed down, again, I'm touching the seal face here. You do not want to do that. Keep that cardboard over there and push down on the cardboard. The way you know if you've got it in there correctly is if you look on the back of the housing here, you should be able to spin it and not see really a gap between the rear part of the seal in here and the back stainless steel housing. It should be pretty flush. Sometimes on a few of them I have seen a little bit of a hairline gap. That's fine. That's just a it's not a defect. It's just not formed all the way when they crimp this down. This one's seated really nice. I can see that the black is touching all the way around. That's good. Want to take this at this time. We've got this cleaned up here. We've got our seal face cleaned up on this side. When we put this together, don't go and be banging this together, putting it together. This is they call it silicon carbide on the back. You do not want to be banging it on the shaft. You're going to see some stamped numbers, which is the part number of this part on the top. Go ahead and just line it up very carefully without banging the seal all over the shaft. Go ahead and slide it on really nicely. You just press with your fingers there and it'll hold tight. At this time, you're going to be putting this thing on. Now, when you put this thing on and you don't take your hammer and start swinging at this thing, the distance between this shaft sleeve and the inner ridge of this mechanical seal is very, very close. It looks like it's maybe a millimeter. If you go ahead and bang this side down, one big swell swoop, you're going to bind the mechanical seal in the shaft and break it. And a lot of times, by the time guys call me, they don't realize that it's even been done. So what I like to do is called the tap-tap method. You're just kind of going around in a circle. Go clockwise. And make sure that it's seating evenly all the way around. You know, you want to be kind of moving at the same pace. Keep going, and you're going to hear this thing. It'll make an audible thud, more of a hollow sound once it's finally seated. Maybe you can hear it in the video here. There, it's all seated all the way down. I can tell just by the sound and the tone that it's making. Go ahead and go look in there, spin your shaft. You know, if it spins freely, it looks good, you're going to be fine. Now, at this time, you're going to have a new O-ring in your kit, so it won't look like this. But go ahead and get your steel wool on here. Steel wool this whole chamfered edge here so it looks nice. Make sure your black O-ring, put a little lube on there. Again, you only got your 1 ounce pillow packet, so get it on there. Get your lube on there, lubricate that thing up. Go ahead and put it back on there. That's what it looks like when it's on. You're going to grab the back half or the front half of your mechanical seal now, and this is the part, again, you don't really want to be touching it like I was. This seal face here you do not want to touch. You want to be grabbing it like this on the outside edge. You don't want to be fingering this all up. If you touch your fingers on this, if you get stone slurry on it, any of that type of stuff, you're going to decrease the life of the seal and it actually might fail on startup. But what you want to do is get your lube again. You're going to be down to the last parts of this lube. And get it in there and lubricate that inner face. It's the rubber face, not the face of the seal. Go ahead and put a little bit more on your finger. Put it on your shaft sleeve. I like to just spin it and touch the outer edge. Put a little more on my finger. Spin it. Do not jam your finger down in there and touch the front of that mechanical seal. Again, we don't want to be touching these faces. But what you want to do, again, without banging it on the shaft, you'll break the seal or chip it. Gently just lay it over the front of that shaft. You've got it lubed up. You've got about 2 minutes to put this on. And just use your thumbs. You're going to start to see it kind of cave over the top of that. Use 3 or 4 fingers and push it the rest of the way in. Push it all the way home. Once it touches that other seal face, it's good. It's going to be tight on there. You won't have any issues. But you do want to get that initial seat down. At this time, you can take your washer. This is actually 3 parts. You've got your spring, you've got your steel cover, and you've got your other washer. Now this washer has a beveled edge on it. That's how you can differentiate it from the other two. The other 2 washers don't. So it's got a nice beveled edge on there. That beveled edge goes down. It will be tight when you put it on there. Don't worry about it. Just kind of inch it along as it goes. You're actually going to be thankful that it's tight so the spring isn't falling off in your lap. So this one went on real nice. It kind of pressurizes the spring for me, pushes it all back in a little bit. At this time, you can grab your impeller, your keyway, and your jam nut. Go ahead and get your trusty Loctite 248. It's the blue stuff. Again, you can use the red if you want. Make sure all these threads are clean. And then you're just going to coat half of that nut with that blue Loctite. Set it aside. Pick up your impeller, your keyway. By now you're going to have all this stuff cleaned up, so it's going to go together real nice. But put your keyway up at the top of the 12 o'clock position and line up your impeller. Now, keep in mind with this impeller, this is where the water goes in, right here. You should see this fluted end be out towards your face. Do not install the impeller like this. That is backwards. That will create massive problems when you go and fire this thing back up later. Also, what I forgot to tell you was inspect inside this impeller if you're going to reuse them again. You shouldn't see any type of debris in here. You shouldn't have any debris up in these veins. Look down in there with a flashlight. Get that debris cleaned out. Go ahead and slide your impeller on. I like to use the meaty part of my hands and go ahead and push it in. Now, once you get that seated, you should only have about 2 millimeters of a gap. Right out, and that's how you know if you put everything together correctly. I'll see if I can get a little pointy tool here. I'll use this little grease thing. This edge is what I'm talking about, right here. Between the edge of the actual impeller and the edge of the shaft, there should only be a couple millimeters of room. So go ahead and hold that tight. You're going to have your keyway is going to be lined up. You can take your keyway and insert it in. Please use anti-seize on your keyway and on your impeller on the inside when you put that together. That way, when the next time you take this apart at Friday on 2 o'clock after everybody's screaming at you, it'll come off nice. If you don't do that, it's not going to come off nice and you're going to be wrestling with this thing. You can see we got our jam nut here with our blue Loctite on. It does have the washer on there. It's the last washer. And just put it on there by hand. Give it a little bump. That's how you know it's tight. Now what you want to do once you get this assembled, it's all together now. You want to just grab it and kind of spin it. This one spins kind of nice, looks good. Once you feel like it spins nice, it confirms you've put it together correctly. You want to grab this impeller and really give it some spin while you take your eyeballs and look down the impeller. You're looking at it from the top down. This one is really good. It doesn't have very much run out in it at all. And run out would be where you see this impeller blade kind of going back and forth, back and forth. This one's really true. If it's got a little bit of just a beep, 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 you're fine. But if you see this impeller going back and forth any more than a little bit, you need to replace the impeller. There's too much deflection, too much run out in that. But this one looks really good. Now we're going to take our case. We've got the O-ring on there. We've got the impeller on there. Again, don't be jamming this thing on. Slow is fast. Slow is fast. Just kind of generally, you got to. The tolerances in here are tight. Let's go ahead and rock it on. If it doesn't go on, pull it off. Find out what's jamming up. On this particular one, looks like I didn't put the O-ring on deep enough. Let's get that reseated down. Give her a shot again, particularly this fluted edge. Try it again. There we go. Went on there nice and easy. Give her a little bump. Take your bolt and your nut. Bolt goes in first. Get your anti-seize on there. Lock washer goes next. Spin them on by hand. Take your second one. Get a little anti-seize on there. Go in the back. Put your nut on there. Now, we've got these, just pretend with me that the 10 bolts are in there. We're only using 2 of them, but just pretend they're all in there. When you go to assemble this thing back together, don't just go around here with your wrench and go tight, 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 tight. You can't do that. It's going to jam the case on there sideways. So what you want to do is you hit here, 1, over here, and you stagger it. 11 and 5, 7 and 1. Do not jam them down with this if you don't have to. If you've got 3/8 inch ratchet, and just hand tighten them down. Go over here, hand tighten this down, and just keep going side to side. 11 to 5, 1 to 7, 9 to 3. Go hand tight, and then on your second or third pass, you can really crank them down, get that sealed surface down for yourself. Once you have this thing fully assembled, do not count your chickens before they hatch. You want to make sure that you've assembled this thing correctly, and one of the ways you can do that is by taking your 30mm socket and getting it on your 6-inch or 12-inch extension on the 1/2 inch. This motor spins the shaft in here clockwise if you're looking behind the motor, if you're looking from behind the motor up. And so what you want to do is duplicate that. You're going to take your 30mm, stick it down the beginning, stick your ear on the output over here, and just turn it. You should feel that shaft turning in there. It should not sound like it's rubbing sticks together. It should not sound like it's metal on metal. It should just spin just like this one does, just really clean. If it spins really clean and there's not very much or any noise at all, that tells you that you put it together correctly. And you can proceed to take this whole pump and motor assembly now, bring it out into the shop, hook your power back up. Please use new washers. They do come with the new pump and motor assemblies. They do not come with the seal kits. You might have to order those separately, but goes in there, goes in there, bolt them back down, and you're ready to go. And that's it for this full circle water Ibarra 3U rebuild video.